Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'd like to remind everybody that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and for those in attendance, I would ask that you please put your phone on silent mode. Unfortunately, we don't have a camera volunteer this evening. Mr. Jackson is not with us, so if anybody out there is watching and wishes to volunteer to run the camera in the future, that would be fantastic. A couple of things to begin with. We have a few ceremonial activities this afternoon, and the first one is a donation of a property to Norfolk County by Mr. DeCloet. So I just would like to read everybody a little bit of background information to begin with. Mr. DeCloet was a local area tobacco farmer who began diversifying into timber production and forest management almost 40 years ago. He and his family at one time owned and managed 700 acres of forest in Norfolk and Elgin counties. Paul has planted countless trees over the years, restoring portions of land on his tobacco farms and championing numerous tree planting initiatives all over Norfolk County and the town of Tillsonburg. Today, we are recognizing Mr. DeCloet for his generous donation of land to Norfolk County. He has donated a forested property that is around 56 acres in size, located south of Cultus in Houghton Township. This piece of land is particularly special to Paul as he has invested a great deal of time and effort into managing this property, allowing it to become the productive and biologically diverse forest that it is today. Mr. DeCloet has owned the property since around 1980 and has invested a countless amount of time on the property, as I said before, planting trees and cutting grapevines and removing poor quality and defective trees and pruning higher quality trees, all of which he has viewed as a labor of love. The property has also been recognized as a significant natural site in Norfolk County's official plan due to the presence of significant species that are located in the area. This special piece of land will now be held with Norfolk County and will be available to anyone from the public wishing to explore it. The property will be named the Paul DeCloet Forest in recognition of Mr. DeCloet and his exemplary forest stewardship practices. So on behalf of Council and Norfolk County as a whole, we would like to thank Mr. DeCloet for his forward thinking and for entrusting Norfolk County to carry on with the management of this legacy property on his behalf. So would you like to come forward? Just want to wish you a big thank you on behalf of Maybe we'll put you on speaker so everybody at home can hear you too.
First of all, I gotta ask, do you have anything else you enjoy that today? Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I got to say a very big thank you to the staff of Norfolk County who have worked with me so closely and showed such leadership towards the culmination of this particular project. I immigrated to Canada in 1953. It'll be 66 years in a few weeks with my parents and 8 siblings. We actually loved our country from the first day we were here, and very fortunate for us, we landed in Norfolk County. It's a county which has been very good to our family, different members at different times, but all in all, it is a part of the country that's to be treasured, and I'm one of the people, perhaps, who might treasure it even more than most. This here particular property we purchased in 1980, and it has brought me an immense amount of good fortune in terms of enjoyment. It was an exceptionally good investment from a financial perspective, and I'm so pleased to be able to leave it in such a manner to Norfolk County that it will be cared for perpetually for the good of the public. You don't have too much time, right? Yeah. You know, I think I better just say, you know, I'm really pleased to present this property to Norfolk County. It'll probably, in all likelihood, will double in size in the next few years. It'll become a 100-acre property, and it'll be something for me and my family ever treasure that we were able to do this for the good of the public. And I thank you all for your cooperation, the councillors, and particularly I want to mention Adam Biddle, the superintendent of forestry. He's done an exceptional job with this, and his cooperation will always be a bright spot for me in the rest of my life. Thank you, Adam. I think that's all I'm going to say. If I get going, I'll go too long. And okay. I know these guys here.
Tough to top that one, but also we have another an amazing presentation this evening, and we did speak about it at our last council meeting, but tonight we are also celebrating one of our paramedics, Samantha Pacheco, who recently received the Governor General's Exemplary Service Medal for paramedics. The Exemplary Service Medal honors paramedics across Ontario who have served for at least 20 years in a meritorious manner, characterized by the highest standards of good conduct, industry, and efficiency. Samantha has been a paramedic in Norfolk County since 1996, and in addition to her emergency response work, currently serves as part of the community paramedicine program, using her knowledge and skills to support a great many vulnerable patients across the county. On behalf of Norfolk County and Council, I would like to congratulate you on your exemplary service medal and thank you for your continued dedication and commitment to Norfolk County. I think we have an amazing EMS team here in Norfolk that we're really lucky to have, so thank you. Okay, sorry for that. Moving on now to council, you have the agenda before you. Staff are indicating that there is some new information regarding contractual matters that we were hoping to address in closed session following the Carson's presentation. So that will be added as 5D number 2, a contractual matter. And my understanding, Councillor Taylor, yourself?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to seek Council's indulgence to waive the rules of order and add a deputation from Cam Carter respecting the installation of video cameras in downtown Simcoe. I would like to request we place it upon the agenda following Parsons' presentation at 5 p.m. as well.
Okay, so I have a motion moved by Councillor Taylor and a seconder for that, seconded by Councillor Rabbits, that Council waives the rules of order and add a deputation from Cam Carter respecting the installation of video cameras in downtown Simcoe to be heard following the Parsons presentation at 5 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. And then we had another one as well, actually.
Yeah, so in the motion.
Okay, oh, sorry. But I thought you wanted the one item pulled.
Oh, sorry. No, we'll do that when we get to that section.
Okay,
Sorry,
okay, gotcha. Okay, and then in terms of communications, I'm just thinking with Mr. Trevally, the chair from the PSB committee regarding the community policing committees, if there's some requests that are in that, and I think it might be maybe prudent to deal with them today. So we'll pull that item for discussion. Is there any others? Councillor Michelli?
Item G, from the minutes of the Norfolk County Agricultural Advisory Board, just a couple of questions of clarification there.
Okay. We will handle that one when we come to it. Anything else? Okay, so then motion moved by Councillor Michelli and seconded by Councillor Van Passen with the described changes to the agenda, that the agenda be amended through the addition of closed session discussion upon contractual matters following the Parsons presentation, and also that communication item C be pulled. All those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this afternoon? Okay, seeing none. I am confused here still with what's going on. All right, so we're going to move forward then with the presentations to 5 Alpha, and that's from Sarah Page.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight to present the results of our Ministry of Health service review and provide a little background as we go through. So every 3 years, the Ministry of Health conducts a service review of every land ambulance service provider across Ontario to ensure that we are meeting our legislated and regulated requirements in order to continue to be an ambulance service provider in the province. So to meet these certification standards, we do have to obtain 90% or higher for all of our patient care and 90% or higher for an overall score of the review while they're here. During the time that they are here, which happened in the end of May of this year, the ministry spends 2 to 3 days on site with the ambulance service, consisting of ministry representatives, other chiefs, other administration, and actual paramedics from across the province come and basically judge what we're doing in many different aspects of our service. Additional paperwork and patient care reports are done off-site as well. They send us a final report, which is what I'm here tonight to report on. And then we follow up with any remarks or comments on what we've received, and they certify us again for a 3-year term, hopefully. No. So basically, the 3 results that you expect when you go through a ministry service review are commendations, so things that they found that were really well done within the service. Any observations, which are basically things that are not critical errors, but observations that they found that could be done better in the future. In addition, they will also tell us any critical omissions, errors, or failure to meet any legislated or regulated standards in any way, because that impedes our ability to be a service provider. Uh-oh. Okay. It's good. So I just wanted to highlight that we did receive a great number of commendations in our review this year. And overall, on all the marked sections that we receive an average of 99%, which is incredibly amazing. The highlights that I'd like to point out are the first couple, which means that all the documentations that they're doing on their patients and the patient care that they are delivering to the standards that are legislated by the county was 100%. The observations and recommendations that we did, and they were few and far between, received from the ministry was that we had some of our emergency response vehicles, our emergency support unit, and one ambulance that were stored in an unprotected environment, which is outside. And so they state that that's the inability to protect medications and supplies. We bring our medication supplies out of those vehicles into the building. We did have a couple paramedic staff that were carrying a Ministry of Health ID cards. They were in their wallet or purse in their truck, but the ministry is very strict on they want it on your person at all times. We did have some unsecured supplies in the back of an ambulance, which can be a hazard if there was ever an accident, things like Kleenex boxes, hand cleaners, things like that. And we had one vehicle observed to have issues with a backup alarm system while they were there. And some paperwork things about when we return a Ministry of Health ID card when someone terminates their employment, whether that's retirement, resignation, anything like that. We failed to provide an actual date that they last worked on one of the applications, so that was an observation. Overall, we're extremely pleased with the high levels of achievements that we got during service review this year. We have formulated a response that we send back to the ministry in order to address the minor things that were brought up. And I just wanted to take the opportunity in front of council and the community to commend all the paramedics of Norfolk County. This is their continued excellence in providing emergency response and compassionate medical care to our community that provided us the results that we did receive. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Martin.
Not a question, but maybe just a comment to please pass along thanks to your team. And I think this is probably the result of what great leadership looks like. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, as that is a presentation, we don't require a motion to receive it. So if nothing further, we will move on to the next item, but I just want to echo Councillor Martin as well. It's always such a relief when you guys come to do a presentation because it's amazing, your department. Thank you. Next presentation is from Mr. Cridlin, and that is in regards to potential elements of design for the Norfolk Community Project.
Okay, thank you, Andy, and we do have the proper presentation up there. So to the Mayor and County Councillors, I will be fairly brief. What you have in front of you will be a brief PowerPoint just outlining a few facts about the elements for the design of the all Norfolk Community Project. That's the name we have to use for the application going forward. And this is a result. We have worked with the RFAB group. We presented a very similar document to them. As of this morning, they have came up with a recommendation that will play out in the end. I think the best way, if we can, in talking to RFAB as well, is I'll do my presentation. I think most councillors will want to hear what the RFAB group have to say, and we'll probably hold all questions to the end. I think that'll work well because some of the questions you have in here, they will bring up in their presentation. So, just top button, side button.
Oh, okay, so now I have to go back. Will that stay, Shannon? That's what we want, okay. Okay, I'll get used to the clipper. Anyways, very, very basic start. Just to remind council that in applying for this application for the All Norfolk Center, if successful, the federal share will be 40%, and this is based on 50 million. So 40% from the feds equals 20 million. The provincial share will be 33%, which is 16.5 million, and the municipal share is 27%, which is 13.5. So we just throw that in for some information. Applicants can request up to $50 million a project as per grant funding as far as the regulations. In the event that a project exceeds 50 million, we are allowed to, in talking to the reps, apply for a project that is over 50 million. However, we'll need to address it in a section of our business case, which we need to address the value of the dollars, where they're going, geographical reach, population, that sort of thing. Maybe I'll just get you to do that, Shannon, if you don't mind. It's not working very well here. Okay. And we need to note that any of the costs above the 50 million spending cap will be funded by 100% by the municipality. Next, a very simple slide just to bring council back to the 3 existing facilities that staff have talked about that need replacing. Number 1 is the Adult Community Center. Number 2 is the Simcoe Recreation Center, which includes obviously the Annalise Cars Aquatics and Talbot Gardens hockey rink. Presently, the Adult Community Center, because I'm not sure how many councillors have actually had a chance to visit the community center. The seniors presently utilize about 9,000 square feet of this center, which homes 550 seniors. This number is growing as well. Also in this building, there's 200 square feet utilized by the Young People's Theater, the Potters Guild, and the Artist Studio. As we go through this presentation, and the RFAB group will touch on, we're proposing a replacement of 15,000 square usable meters. The present building they're in is much bigger than 11,000 square meters or feet. However, it's a lot of it is unusable. So part of the request is an additional 4,000 square feet for the senior center, and this is just based simply on our demographic projections, where Norfolk is in a aging population compared to the rest of the province, and those numbers are going to get bigger, as hence we'll need some growing room in the senior center for future years. The next is the Simcoe Recreation Center. Presently we have one 5-lane sub 25 meter lap pool. There's 1 ice rink there, 3 meeting rooms, a sports hall of fame, and related administrative offices. And proposed going ahead would be a 8-lane 50 lap pool plus a warm water lesson pool. 2 separate basins for those, a hockey rink for hockey rink, and of course this includes storage, change rooms, washrooms, and presently we're asking for about 300 seating capacity with that rink, as well as the 3 meeting rooms. The increase in the size of the pool being asked for is, the warm water pool is very important to us right now. We have a competitive swim team plus the general public, plus the raising seniors using the pool for aquafit and things like that. Keeping the pool at the same temperature. The warm water pool is definitely needed, and the 8-lane over the sub 25 is for the competitive team, and also the to allow meets to happen, and also general public. Our pool presently serves over 300 bathers quite regularly, and in the early 90s I believe that number was 100, so the pool is definitely used to capacity. Next is Talbot Gardens. It has 1 seasonal ice rink. Ice comes out in the summer. 1 multimedia meeting room upstairs, washrooms and concessions. Proposed replacement for that is an NHL size rink. Replace, again, 1 for 1, 1 for the meeting room, and lobby and circulation common area. So when staff section, when we put a dollar value to the replacement of these, and we also do include parking, because we currently have 400 parking spaces, where if we move to a new facility, we're going to at least need 400 spaces for the 400 spaces that we're leaving behind. And also these numbers that we calculated on are based on what we call a Class D estimate. We've talked to consultants, we've talked to municipalities that did recent builds. We applied a math to the square footage, and this is what we come up with. These numbers are also, I think I can say in fairness, I won't say high end, or upper end, but they're high end build. A lot of municipalities said you can save some money when you're doing this, but within 5, 6, 7 years, certain parts of your facility are starting to fall apart. And I don't think anybody at this table or in staff or the RFAB group want to be part of a project that within 5 years we're replacing shower units and things like that. So total replacement costs based on the 3 units are $45,885. Next page, that is more the mortar and brick part of the build. In addition to that, it's common practice with construction projects to have a 25 to 30% contingency cost, and this is on the construction itself for overruns, consulting fees, furniture, soft services, signage, utility fees, testing, inspections. This list goes on. Also in the bullets, we mention a few other things, the climate lens study. If you're going to go to a full LEEDs building, that's an additional cost. Additional parking of 200 spots, internal servicing, land acquisition is a big one, landscaping, stormwater, HST, legal costs, project management, and final architectural designs. Staff wanted to throw these in to make council and RFAB aware that in addition to this cost to build a building, there are these costs on top. Now, those costs are very hard to pin down because at the present time, we do not have a final design on the building. Location will affect that as well, and I think there's talk later today about pinning down location. So those numbers, we can get numbers for those things as soon as we get a final design. Next page, thank you. The staff a few years ago, we went out through extensive public consultation, met in 6 urban areas. We threw an online survey out there, as well as paper survey sent through, and these components also not identified in the building are a double gymnasium, was highly supported by the community. The 8-lane 50-meter pool and the warm water pool were highly recommended, and they are in the proposal, and RFAB is forwarding them through as a recommendation. RFAB will also be forwarding through a community kitchen concept, which we heard a lot of need and interest in. An innovation center, innovative center, which can be almost anything we want to make it. It's basically open space, and RFAB has recommended that. And for future, I might have messed up here, the double gymnasium is a possible project. I'll call it phase 2 for now. And also the indoor soccer dome has come up in recent conversations, and it's thrown in there as well. So this will be talked more about with the RFAB group, and we'll mention that this gives us time on those 2 items to put a costing a little closer and flush that a little further. The next chart is our number chart, which a little hard to read here, but again, the RFAB group will really drill in on this. So we have the cost of what it is to replace what we have. And we also have the 20-year forecasted capital for these buildings. So that number's there, and we can compare that on the left side of the chart to the rebuild on the right side of the chart. Again, RFAB will go more into detail on that. So this is a number page you may want to keep handy for when the RFAB does their talk. And below are some pricing, rough pricing for the additional items that RFAB and staff are recommending go this time around, and then the 2 that will be next time. With that, it's a good segue here into the recommendation that RFAB made this morning. I'm not sure if many of you have seen this, but I'll give you a minute to read it. And with that, I'll turn the mic over to, I believe, Paul Anderson, who will be the first speaker for the RFAB group. And again, if we're okay with questions at the end, that would probably be the best way to tackle this.
Thank you, and if you can't read that due to the print, I'll say it for you instead at some point here. We're here to discuss the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Community, Culture, and Recreation Grant. So that's the actual grant that we're working on right now. The RFAB has several citizen members here today to help council make a decision. With me, I have Gord Malo, JJ Knott, and Ian Neville. Over the last few weeks, The board's worked pretty diligently to come to an agreement on the nature of the proposed facilities. And, if you can't read that, I'll say it out loud for everybody. The recommendation is that the Recreational Facilities Advisory Board recommends that Council consider the following elements for the All Norfolk Community Hub funding application: a senior center, a 50-meter swimming pool, parking, Arena 1 and walking track, Arena 2, community space, community kitchen, and an innovation center for an overall cost of $52.7 million plus contingency costs, subject to Council's adjustment in the future, and that a double gymnasium and indoor soccer dome be further considered upon more detailed costing analysis, and that they be included in the fundraising efforts. Okay, this list is biased towards ensuring that the existing facilities can be replaced efficiently and with a view to both growing the county and meeting the changing age demographics of the county. The senior center needs to be larger, and it will be. It will also be tied to a community kitchen and some general community space. This will serve the entire facility as a place where families can enjoy themselves while waiting for other members to complete their athletic endeavors. Linked to this soft space, an innovation center will host technologies such as 3D printing, web streaming, and podcasting, allowing minds of all ages the opportunity to learn something new at the hub. We believe this could also be partnered with the library to allow book loans and returns. The Aquatic Center will host a 50-meter competitive pool and a warm water pool. These facilities will be able to host a variety of simultaneous activities, greatly expanding the availability of Learn to Swim, Aquafit, Lane Swim, team training, and other water-based sports and recreation. Nearly 1 in 5 females participating in athletics who are 15 and over are swimmers. This is the most popular sport for women in Canada. Besides opening up the Learn to Swim program for drowning prevention, life skills, the competition pool will establish Norfolk as a center of excellence. Norfolk right now has athletes participating at all levels of competition, from regional championships to world championships, and quite possibly next year an Olympian coming from Norfolk. A better facility, coupled with outstanding coaching, will attract families with swimmers to this region. A large pool will also lend itself to operational efficiencies. It's 38% less expensive to operate one 50-meter pool than two 25-meter pools. When considering the size requirements, the board looked at surrounding communities. Brantford has a service level 6 times Norfolk. London has a 10 times the service level. To be comparable with Brantford, Norfolk's current population requires 600 meters of swim lane. That's how the 50-meter pool and warm water pool were derived. The ice gardens will host 2 arenas. Arena 1 will be a 600 to 800 seat NHL-sized year-round pad, replacing Talbot Gardens. It'll have a running and walking track surrounding it for use whenever the facility's open. Arena 2 will be smaller in capacity, but will serve both the community and tournaments. Tournaments are an economic engine for growth. I spoke to the previous council about the Wayne Gretzky Athletic Center. They host 1 swim meet once per year. Those 600 plus swimmers bring in $400,000 directly into the economy of Brantford, and they have an impact in the community of $5 million every single year for the last 45 years. That $6 million facility has generated more than $200 million in economic impact for the city of Brantford in the last 45 years. Facilities that are tournament ready are investments in our future. As the design progresses, we have plans to include this combination double gym / indoor-outdoor amphitheater and a bubble-domed soccer pitch. I'd like to call on Gord Malo to present some financial numbers.
Madam Mayor and councilors, it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. The recommendation that comes to you today comes from an RFAB committee that I've been most impressed with and enjoyed working with. The community members possess a great mixture of Norfolk knowledge and community connection, as well as expertise in large capital projects like the All Norfolk Community Hub. The council members on the committee have been very engaged and helpful with their input, and county staff have thrown their full efforts behind this initiative and have been very responsive to the committee's questions and requests. So I'd just like to say that in my opinion, please be assured that this recommendation, amongst others from the committee, come to you very well considered. $26 million. $26 million. That is the amount of money that Norfolk will need to spend over the next 20 years to repair our primary recreational facilities located in Simcoe. Those being the Senior Center, the Rec Center, and Talbot Gardens. $26 million. And $22.4 million of that is scheduled to be spent in the next 10 years alone. And the $26 million is no doubt light, as after the 10-year mark, no inflation has been applied to those numbers. So it will be $26 million plus, plus, plus. If Norfolk spends that money on repairs, we will be spending it on a senior center that is 125 years old. We will have a pool that is still too narrow to host regional competitions. We will still have arenas that aren't NHL size, one that can't support half-ice hockey that 40% of our minor hockey players now play, and that have dressing rooms insufficient to host hockey jamborees and tournaments. Those will be the facilities that we still have. There is a better plan. The recommendation before you is to submit an application for federal and provincial funding towards an all-new Norfolk Community Hub. We need to submit this application to obtain the funding to build the hub, and the application requires that some meat is on the bone with regards to Norfolk's vision for the hub. The RFAB committee, following significant community outreach and research, recommends submitting an application for funding a hub that includes a new senior center, which is larger than the current center, a new 50-meter pool and aquatics facility, which will be a significant improvement to our current pool, a primary arena with a walking track, which Norfolk currently doesn't have, and a second arena, with both arenas built to NHL size, which we currently do not have in Norfolk County, and with both arenas capable of supporting new minor hockey programming. It will also include a community kitchen, an innovation center, community space, and necessary parking, all at an estimated construction cost of $52.7 million. This facility will not simply be a number of recreational assets located in the same space. It will be a living, breathing community center that brings the people of Norfolk together. A center that welcomes people of all ages and interests. A center that ties into the programming of our community educational partners. A center that attracts new people to our community and that drives our community forward. Working with Norfolk County staff, we have determined that when we take the estimated construction costs of the facility and add soft costs and contingencies, less the federal and Ontario funding, and compare the net Norfolk contribution to the $26 million we are otherwise going to spend on repairing our existing facilities, the additional cost to Norfolk County is estimated at only $6.7 million. The $6.7 million of additional Norfolk contribution is before taking into consideration the potential proceeds of selling redundant recreational assets and before considering community fundraising efforts. As such, we expect the additional cost to Norfolk County to be very small. And Norfolk County will not just be getting replacement facilities, but larger, better, additional facilities that are modern, world-class, and will serve Norfolk County for generations to come. The RFAB committee believes in building it right the first time. The components included in this application represent building it right the first time. We also believe that building it right the first time includes a double gymnasium and indoor soccer pitch. However, it is too early to say whether it is financially reasonable and responsible to include these components in the original build. More due diligence and costing work must be done before such determinations can be made. As such, these assets are excluded from the specific funding request we are making, but they remain part of the initial vision. For now, we need to submit a funding application. We need to maximize federal and provincial dollars, and we need to show a vision towards a remarkable all-Norfolk community hub that will serve Norfolk County's needs today and for generations to come, while at the same time respecting Norfolk's financial realities. The RFAB Committee believes today's recommendation achieves these goals, and we seek your support in moving this exciting project forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Gord. That was fantastic. Is there questions from councillors for anyone from RFAB or staff? Councillor Martin.
Through the mayor to any member of RFAB, can you, one thing I didn't hear a lot about was any type of expansion on community partnerships or precedent-setting partnerships with things like the community kitchen or the innovation hub. Are you able to touch on that and share those details with council?
I think a community kitchen or innovation hub is a great idea that we haven't really sought out a partnership for yet, but it certainly lends itself to things like the Fanshawe College link-in, where we're getting higher education interested in our public facility, and we're linking with that. And certainly anything that brings that higher education into this township, where are we? Into the county, it will certainly bring down our age as more and more families see futures for their kids right in our county.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. One more question that I didn't hear touched on today, but I know that the group has certainly discussed in length, is focusing on the efficiencies. Are there any comments you can make to share with council regarding the efficiencies of the new build and why 2 rinks were included instead of just 1 and so on and so forth?
The efficiencies have been discussed with staff and amongst the committee, and they are numerous. First of all, having everything under one roof from a staffing perspective, for servicing perspective, the new technology, the new build, the energy efficiency that you have in a new build. Our senior center now is 125 years old with single pane glass. The efficiencies go on and on. With regards to arenas specifically, if we only included 1 arena in the original build, there's a number of ramifications to that. First of all, you have programming efficiencies from tournaments, from having everyone in one spot. The staffing that goes along with that. If you maintain your second arena in a second spot, you have to have that specifically staffed and maintained by itself, as opposed to in conjunction with the other arena. A very big one is the additional repairs that would still have to be made to that second arena, which that second arena would be Talbot. Over the next 10 years, I believe that number is in the neighborhood of $2.6 million that we would be throwing at Talbot Arena just to keep it going. That money is a good chunk of what we would be spending on a new arena, which we can get federal and provincial funding towards. So in fact, the Norfolk County contribution is going to be very comparable between just repairing Talbot versus getting a brand new arena.
Councillor Clovis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gord, some time ago there was a fundraising committee structure. I recall you came to council and we're going to donate some dollars on behalf of the Lions Club with it?
Correct.
Where are we with the fundraising for this particular project?
There is a fundraising committee that is struck. We have also reached out with regards to how is that going to be structured. Significant money can be raised for an effort like this with regards to naming rights, whether that's on the main pool, the main arenas, the dressing rooms. It goes on and on with regards to the ability to capitalize on putting one's name towards it as a company or individual, and also just private donations towards this. Before those efforts can go too far forward, we need to know what the design is. We need to know the vision. And doing things like having a property where you can say it's going to be built, with regards to saying that you actually have put in your application for funding, we need a few tangible realities to hit before we can go to the next stage and say, this is what we want to build. How can you contribute towards it? With regards to the Lions Club contribution of $250,000, that is still well and good and fully intended on going towards this project.
Councillor Michele.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gord, JJ, Paul, whichever who can answer this, but I have had a few people ask me about the seating capacity of the larger ice rink, which is at 800. which I believe, and I could stand corrected, is slightly smaller than the total seating in Talbot Gardens. And people have mentioned to me that Simcoe does not have any kind of major junior hockey team. Was there any consideration given to that seating number with regard to the possibility that it might not be large enough to attract a profitable junior hockey team?
We do have to be careful that the funding application does specifically exclude that level of hockey. So it's ineligible if it's built for that. So we are aware of that and deliberately not mentioning any specific high-end hockey in this application because of that. Now, I believe Gord has some better numbers on the existing Talbot Gardens numbers.
Those numbers that are put in there currently are intended for the primary arena to really replace what we have at Talbot. That was the first priority, was replacing that, and I believe that's right in the same ballpark. I'm looking to Mr. Cridlin and yes, it is, in that same ballpark. I think once we get down to final design and costing drives a lot of this, there's some flexibility around exactly what those final numbers for capacity look like, and certainly there's an interest in going higher. Just as importantly, if not more importantly though, was with regards to the second arena. Right now at the rec center, the seating is abysmal to non-existent. You cannot host any real tournament play and satisfy spectators. So when we were looking at that second pad, there was a priority to making sure we get to that 300 to 400 capacity seating for that, so that you really can utilize that comfortably and host tournaments through that pad, et cetera, to have that as a usable spectator arena. That was a strong priority.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, JJ, I noticed you stood up when the question about efficiencies was asked, so I'm just going to give you that opportunity there to speak to some more efficiencies.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, on the efficiencies end of things, this is where you get some return on investment for your dollar spent. We did some original calculations around energy efficiency between the existing facilities and the new, and we came up with a number somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20%. That would be on top of any operational efficiencies that you realize by building a central facility with a number of components within it. The one thing that I stress with the RFAB group too is that typically, and design, of course, we haven't got into the details of design, so mechanical, electrical equipment, we haven't established what would be going into the facility. But typically the incremental difference in costs between a basic system and a more energy efficient system, those dollar amounts are covered off in your incentive programs. So every dollar you spend towards energy efficiency in this new facility could very well be received back in by way of incentive. And so the provincial government, we have incentives through the electricity local distribution company, the natural gas companies, and a federal government is now establishing incentives for emissions and carbon neutrality. So if you start working some of those components into the facility, again, you can realize money back by way of incentives.
Just as an additional point to that, and going back to the second pad and putting that in and discussing with Mr. Shoemaker, who has experience driving out these projects, putting in that second pad, the technology is now there to use the heat from the pools and the cool from the arenas and cross them to have energy efficiency. So putting in the two pads at the same time also drives those systems to realize energy efficiency.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Melo did a good job of talking a little fast and slipping some numbers in, so I want to make sure if I got it right here. We're looking at a $50 million build that's fundable partially with federal and provincial dollars, but that will cover $36.5 million. And then you talked about our projected capital budget over the next 20 years still being $6 million short. So if you add in all the soft costs, we're looking at a project that's almost $70 million, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
just as a note to that, the funding program is a $50 million, you max out at $50 million. That's only on construction costs. So if you were to actually do something any less than that, you are leaving money on the table with the federal and provincial programs. So with our construction cost estimate at $52.7 million, we are maximizing the extent to which we are getting federal and provincial dollars. The soft costs that go on top of that, regardless of what size you build this out, that is a municipal responsibility. So in putting forward the project that we're achieving our objectives with regards to facilities, in fact, improving a lot on what we need for generations to come, but most critically is maximizing those federal and provincial dollars that we can get.
Great answer. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. If I could switch gears for a second and maybe drill some questions away to staff. Through the mayor to Mr. Shoemaker, are you able to comment on any trends you're seeing in rec registration numbers throughout the county? Commonly this council has heard about decreased hockey rates.
Through the mayor. Actually, I brought them with me. We just gathered these numbers to forward off to Fred Galloway to put some numbers together for us for this actual application. And these numbers show I have 2016-2017 season where there was a total of 1,449 hockey players and figure skaters. 2017-2018, that went up to 1,454. 2018-2019 hockey season, that went up to 1,504. And for the 2019-2020 season, that went up to 1,528. So we are actually, our numbers are actually going up in our registrations with minor sports.
Wonderful, thank you. And there is a community that is seeing decreased hockey rates, but is it accurate to say they're also seeing increased figure skating rates in those same communities?
Through your worship, yes, there is, yes.
Thank you very much. My next question I'd like to send through the mayor to Ms. Darlington, and I wondered if you could comment to council through your accessibility committee lens about current infrastructure and what this new facility could bring to the table.
Thank you through Mayor Chop to Councillor Martin. We've been very successful with the existing facilities in making as much improvements we can with accessibility, but they are limited because of the existing structures. So we attempt as best we can to make our programs and our facilities accessible, but when we look at a new building, it's a clean slate, and it provides sort of an opportunity for us to look at inclusive design, look at using Council's approved design guidelines and the Accessibility for Ontario with Disabilities Act standards, and not just looking at physical barriers. We often think of a person in a wheelchair or in a mobility device, but this gives us an opportunity to look at hearing, sensory, sight, and vision improvements in this facility. And I think it's well known, and it's certainly been acknowledged by RFAB council members and staff, that recreation has the power to improve the overall well-being of individuals and provide opportunities for personal growth. And it really would allow people of all abilities, including persons with disabilities, to enhance their lifestyle.
Thank you. One more, if I may, through the mayor. I would like to just get some comments on general health and wellness in our community through your department, what this facility could bring to Norfolk County residents that they're not already experiencing.
So thank you through the mayor and the segue from Ms. Darlington, actually. So health and social services staff work to promote always health and well-being, which includes increased socialization. Staff, of course, will support any initiative that will promote an increase in physical activities, as we know that inactivity has a significant health impact and economic burden. So I have just a few high-level statistics to share with you just for your consideration. So the total healthcare cost of physical inactivity related to 7 primary chronic diseases is $6.8 billion a year. The total economic burden of excess weight and physical inactivity in Canada is estimated at $29 billion per year. The projected cost savings of increasing physical activity rates in Canada by 1% alone per year is a $2.1 billion per year savings, or an accumulated burden reduction of $20.3 billion by the year 2030.
Thanks, Marlene. Any further questions from councillors? Well, thank you very much for coming today. I think it might even be helpful, Gord, is it possible to get a copy of that from you?
Yes, absolutely.
That would be great, just in case we need to make some corrections moving forward. Not corrections on your speech, rather, but corrections perhaps as misrepresentation, as we've seen in the media. So we just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page here, that we are replacing the facilities in Simcoe, and with that additional provincial and federal funding, we're basically coming out to a break-even point with the hopes of receiving some private funding or private donations for that $6 million gap, and at the end have far superior facilities for our residents. So I guess if there's nothing further from councillors, what time is it here? We're going to wait until 5 for Parsons, or did you want to move into closed session now? Oh, sorry. I guess, yeah, we'll move ahead with the motion right now, right? Sorry. Speak up.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Just letting you finish your train of thought there. I personally don't need to hear any more information. I am so proud to be a part of this Rec Facility Advisory Board. I have never been so excited to work on a project with all of our staff coming together as one team. So without any further comments, I would like to move the recommendation as presented by RFAB to council.
Seconder? Councillor Shelley. All right, that the Recreational Facility Advisory Board, RFAB, recommends that council consider the following elements for the All Norfolk Community Hub funding application. It's a senior center, a 50-meter pool, parking, arena number 1 and walking track, arena number 2, community space, community kitchen, and an innovation center for a cost of $52.7 million plus contingency costs, subject to council's adjustment in the future, and that a double gymnasium and indoor soccer dome be further considered upon a more detailed costing analysis, and that they be included in the fundraising efforts. Any further discussion on that? Councillor Van Bassen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make sure that I have this perfectly clear. All this motion does is allow staff to fill in an application for that federal and provincial funding, and if that is accepted, then another decision point comes back to this council, correct?
Correct. We need to receive the provincial and federal funding.
Yeah.
Councillor Columbus.
Yeah, just wanted to say something about this. I know that we're in desperate need of a new pool, and we desperately need to replace the senior center. About the arenas, I'm not 100% sure, but all I want to do is make sure that other communities on the west end of the county, probably a third of the population, that perhaps won't benefit as much as Simcoe and the east end, that they get equal consideration down the road for recreational facilities. I hope they're not forgotten. Thank you.
Councillor Michele.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I would have to concur with Councillor Columbus' suggestion. Thank you.
Councillor Geisens.
I have to agree, as the last two councillors said. I would, yes, it can go forward, but we need to look at all of it. If you get to Houghton, that's a long way to come to Simcoe, and also going to have to pay some of that to before bringing it forward. So I hope that somewhere along the line that something will come forward later. Thank you.
Anything further? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Now, Councillor Taylor, did you wish to bring your deputation forward now or later? I don't see him. Okay. Why is this so confusing? All right, moving through the communications. First one is from Brad Thompson, General Manager, McDonald Turkey Point Marina. That's been moved by... It's okay, I'll carry on. That's been moved by Councillor Tom Michelli and seconded by Councillor Van Passen. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? That's carried. Next item is the correspondence regarding the Long Point Causeway. Be received as information, moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Geisens. All those in favor? It's carried. And now the next one is the communication from the PSB Chair, Dennis Tavalli, regarding the Community Policing Committees. I was just wondering if we might be able to have a quick discussion on that, if there's anybody that wishes to move some of the requests from that committee that's come forward. Councillor Columbus.
Well, Madam Mayor, as a representative on the Police Services Board and having been to a couple meetings where we actually met with the various policing committees, I would be prepared to have a motion to endorse the recommendation of the of this police chairs committee.
As printed on
As
page
printed,
16
yes.
and 17.
Yeah, I don't see any harm in any of those. Okay.
Great. Seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Moving on now to the approval of minutes from the council meeting of September 17th. The minutes of September 17th have been circulated. Are there any errors or omissions? All good this time, Councillor Shelley? Perfect. Seeing none, the minutes are declared adopted and will be signed by myself and the clerk. Now moving on to the reports of committees. We have the special council and committee minutes open and closed from October 3rd, 2019. And if we could have, we have a motion before us moved by Councillor Van Passen and seconded by Councillor Michelli that council waive the rules of order to amend resolution number 4 of the October 3rd, 2019 minutes to add where possible following the outstanding conditions. So that was in regards to the spatial separation, and I believe everybody received the circulation on that today, so more of a procedural matter than anything. So if there's any discussion on that, now we'll take a vote. All those in, Councillor Columbus.
Just want to make a comment about recommendation number 26.
Okay, we'll vote on resolution number 4, is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? And that's carried. And go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, recommendation number 26, I believe, was the one where we're dealing with the Public Works yard on Highway 3. And I know it's costing us millions of dollars to restore it back to being environmentally friendly. And before Norfolk County actually took that over, it was an MTO yard. It was an Ontario government yard. So how do we know that MTO employees at the time, back in the 60s, did not dump some environmental waste in that site? So can we not ask the province for some money to offset our cost?
Ms. Butis might be better able to answer this, but to my knowledge, environmental liability follows the new owner of the property, does it not?
Not exclusively.
So what would be your comment to?
Sorry, I was partly listening to the question. It sounds like what you're asking is there is a piece of property which we may be acquiring, which...
I'll just clarify it.
Yeah.
It's an MTO yard on Highway 3. Back in the 1960s up until 1974, I believe it was, or perhaps earlier than that. It was an MTO yard, Ministry of Transportation, Ontario government. We took it over. I don't know whether we got it for $1 or whether it was given to us or what. But now the county is charged with a major multi-million-dollar cleanup of that site.
Oh.
So I'm wondering, being that the MTO used that yard years ago, could they be held partially responsible for contaminating the site? And not only the county?
Well, it's a question I would have to look into, which is a standard lawyer answer, I guess. But what I will say is that prior to 1970 or thereabouts, there was no Environmental Protection Act. And liabilities can carry to past owners under the existing Environmental Protection Act. But I would, to go that far back, it's pretty hard, but probably likely that there were contaminating activities occurring at that time because there was very little regulation. So whether or not you can ask the Ministry of Transportation for money, you personally, you can always ask them for money. There's nothing that stops the county from asking for money as a contributory expenses if, a polluting party, but it would depend. The acquisition of the property, there might have been details around contracts at that time which said as is, where is. I really just don't know. You just have to look back at the documents to figure that out. The ministry itself, through order powers in the Environmental Protection Act, can go to past owners. But your agreement with them, presumably there were agreements in place at the time relating to those liabilities. So I'd have to look at the contracts.
I think it's a worthwhile investment of staff time to look at the paperwork back at the registry office and find out some of this, because this is getting outrageous cost to restore that site.
Okay. Councillor Van Passen.
Looking around the room to see if there's somebody here who might be able to answer this, but are you sure that that was an MTO yard? I thought that was the Norfolk County yard in its previous existence before we became amalgamated into Hull and Norfolk. So we might want to check that first before we...
I see Ms. Darlington nodding her head in agreement with Councillor Van Passen. Perhaps we could just provide some direction, not a formal motion or anything, but we could look in at least to determine who the clarification that was in fact the owner. Perfect. Okay, so moving on then, motion moved by Councillor Geisen, seconded by Councillor Michelli, that the open and closed minutes of October 3rd, 2019 Special Council and Committee be approved. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next are the public hearing committee minutes from October 7, 2019. No items have been pulled. The minutes are before you, and if there are no errors or... Oh, Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just, I think I do need to make a correction in the minutes of that public hearing committee. On page 5 of 8 of the minutes and page 47 in our agenda package, there was one person who came to speak forward about the old mill drain that was being considered, and it was Ms. Fidanza. The minutes indicate that she came forward to speak to the hardship of the proposed drain. I do believe we may need to add it's her personal financial hardship that she was concerned with. I don't think that there's any problem with the actual drain plan itself. In addition, I spoke with Ms. Fidanza after that meeting, and just before that meeting, that topic was passed by council. Another resident from on that same topic arrived very late and was going to speak to that but did not. So, and I know that we can't necessarily enter that into the minutes because she did not speak, but I just wanted to make council aware that there were at least 2 people here who were concerned about the financial hardship that project would impose on them. Thank you.
So again, at the time, that wasn't, they both still have an opportunity to speak to that, right? One.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I made them both aware of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we will add financial hardship on page 47. Otherwise, the motion's been moved by Councillor Van Pass and seconded by Councillor Michele that the public hearing committee minutes of October 17th, 2019 be approved. All those in favor? That's carried. Next one is the Health and Social Services Advisory Committee minutes, August 15th, 2019. They are before you for information. Any discussion on those? Okay, we'll receive those as information. All those in favor? And that's carried. Sorry, that was moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Michele. Next one, Downtown Simcoe BIA minutes, August 21st, 2019. They are before you as well for information. Any discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Well, I just found it interesting to note in the general manager's report, it says the first downtown cleanup took place on September the 7th, and these minutes were, the meeting was held on the 21st of August, so just interesting point.
Anything else?
I think that's September 21st.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Sorry, moved by Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Taylor. We have this one right there, Councillor Columbus. Moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the Delhi BIA minutes of December 12, 2019 be received as information. Is there any discussion first on that? All those in favor? Carried. The next one are the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board minutes, September 16, 2019. Any discussion? Moved by Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Carried. And the Norfolk County Agricultural Advisory Board minutes, September 20th. Moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Geisens. Any discussion? Councillor Michele?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess sometimes one of the problems with some of these committee meetings is that there's very seldom the members of the committee are here to ask questions of, but in this case, I'm going to ask if Councillor Columbus can help explain a couple of things. I noticed in the follow-up section in item 4B in the minutes, there is a reference in the very first bulleted point. It indicates septic systems, and that there is that the committee is awaiting a response from the Ministry of the Environment. I'm wondering if Councillor Columbus could just explain what that is.
Well, that's with respect to offshore housing on farms, and sometimes it takes a year or two to get your proper permits in place for that, and it's delaying some of these builds to house offshore workers. And I believe the mayor and the previous mayor both went to Roma and AMO to speak to the Minister of Agriculture about that, but it's a Ministry of Environment issue that we have to deal through. Hopefully there's some progress being made on that, but it's still up in the air.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus. And Madam Mayor, if I can, one more. I also noticed in that same list, there's a reference to the Road 45 bridge, and that there are some objections have been filed by a local company, a farmer, and an engineer. I guess first, if Councillor Columbus can say, and I realize I don't want to have anyone named, but is the engineer a person who is a member of the committee, or is that a person who has also just filed an objection to that in that case with that appeal?
The engineer is a resident of Ward 2. He doesn't work for the county, nothing like that.
Thank you. And just one more, Madam Mayor. I'm also just curious if those people who have filed that objection, that appeal with the Ministry of the Environment, have they appeared actually before the committee in the past? They have not? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Columbus. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Van Basten.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a bit more about that septic system. had a discussion with the Minister of Agriculture at Roma, and one of the sort of simple-minded comments I made is, why is it possible that you can build a house on a half-acre lot with a septic system and put 6 people in there, and next door have another house on a septic system with 6 people, and then another house on a half-acre with 6 people? They can all be on their own septic system, but you can't build a bunkhouse with 15 people, because then you need a sewage treatment plant built there as well. And, you know, if you can fit a septic system on a half-acre lot, surely you can fit a septic system on a 300-acre farm. But they don't look at it that way, and that's one of the things we're trying to change their mind about, to look at it like simple farmers do rather than bureaucrats in Toronto do.
Thank you, Councillor Van Passen, for that explanation. It was great the first time, and just as great the second. Okay, so we will receive that as information. That's been moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Geisens. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next one is the Energy Conservation Committee meeting minutes of September 20th. Any discussion on that? Moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Michele, that the Energy Conservation Committee meeting minutes of September 20th, 2019 be received as information. All those in favor? And that's carried. And the Telecommunications Advisory Committee minutes of September 26th, they are also before you, moved by Councillor Michele, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. And finally, that the Recreational Facility Advisory Board minutes of September 30th, 2019 be received as information. It's moved by Councillor Rabbits and seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Carried. All right, moving on. Why don't we'll do the first. Yes, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I do apologize because I stepped out briefly, and I believe that you have passed the minutes from September 17th. I just wanted to make a point, and if it's not relevant, then we can move on. On page 23, 5 of 9, Resolution 13, the motion says at the end, and that the mayor review all invoices paid toward the architectural firm. At that time, that was not the intent of my motion. I didn't want the mayor to review paid bills. I wanted the mayor to be involved in the process of what the bills were going to run up in cost for the architectural firm. I wanted her to be involved in the process and have the final say. The motion as is reads right now that she will review paid invoices. My intent was that the mayor would be involved prior to the payment of an invoice.
And I have been, so it's been working.
Lovely.
Okay? Okay. All right, why don't we do the your report, Jason, and then we'll maybe take a break after that or go into closed session to deal with the hub component while we're here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is reported support of tender PWR-19-24, winter maintenance of municipal parking lots and sidewalks. It's found on page 79 of your agenda package. Essentially what this is an award of contract for a 3-year term for the winter cleanup of various sidewalks and parking lots across Norfolk County. We do a number of this work between Public Works and Community Services staff. They look after a number of lots. We unfortunately don't have the manpower in order to look after everything. So what we've done is gone ahead and put together a single tender requesting pricing in order to get this work done for us. So the award would be to enter into a contract for a 3-year term with the different companies here listed: Property Maintenance and Mobile Wash, Jody's Lawn Care Incorporated, Griffin Landscape Management Solutions, and Fitch General Contracting. You'll notice that there's quite an extensive list of all the different locations and who the recommended award is to. Those are covered on the next 3 pages or so of the report. Essentially, the budget for these activities is held in the various end users budget lines. So one of the things that we've been working with our finance folks on is being able to better illustrate to you what the actual tracking is. We're in the process now of getting a better system in place so that we can clearly tell you, how much it costs for each individualized location. We didn't have that data at this time, which is why you will not see that contained within the finance comments. However, it is something we're working on improving going forward. And in response to another inquiry that was earlier, the pricing that you do see listed in the table, that is a per event cost, meaning because weather is variable, especially in the winter, we only pay when the service is required. So when a service is required, that would be the cost of having that performed. If you have any other questions, I will gladly entertain them.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. I see that one of the services there was no bidder, so who becomes responsible in that case?
Councillor Van Passen, I see.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to bring that one up myself, and I hope if I look at our legal experts that interest in common would apply, because that is the fire hydrant on my farm. And nobody even had the decency to bid on it. So I wonder what they think of me, but not to worry, I'm sure it will get cleaned out.
Councillor Columbus.
Well, Jason, some of these contracts, what they bid on, don't we have a timeline where they have to have this cleaned up by a certain time? Like there's some monumental task here. If you have a snowstorm with 1.5 foot of snow or something, do you think that they would be able to get around to all these facilities? And let's say something doesn't work out. Is there an escape clause from our side plus their side?
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus, those are all things that are factored into the contract that we do have with them. I don't have the particulars of the timing response right available with me. However, I do know that it was laid out in that whole thing that, they can't just leave it for days upon end. At the very start, when we do award these contracts, we will sit down and kind of have a prioritization session with the contractor based on which sites they even have, so that we can kind of get a response plan that makes sense for them and for us as to how quickly and which locations they should be going to first. I believe I missed the second part of your question.
Yes, about an escape clause.
Yes.
Let's say they bid on this job and they find out they're too low, and then they don't want to fulfill their 3-year term. What happens? Do they have a way to get out of the contract?
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus, it looks like Ms. Darlington jumped at the chance to talk about this one. So, hey, she got in the chair, so I'll defer that one to her.
Thank you through the mayor to Councillor Columbus, and thank you, Mr. Godby. Certainly there is a clause. We have bid deposits and performance security on this contract. We have performance standards outlined in the contract. So if there's an issue, the Roads Department and Public Works Department will be monitoring performance, but there is a performance security that they would lose if they failed to continue with the contract.
Just following along on that, is there a more simple penalty clause? Because I do recall several complaints, even last winter in our short time, of sidewalks not being done and parking lots not being done. And so there has to be something to start to ensure quality from some of the vendors. I mean, I just think of some of the road work that's being done recently that we're seeing a number of complaints on and so on. And having not seen the contract, I don't know what kind of clauses are in there or, what terms there are that we could utilize to protect our interests.
Sure, through Mayor, through the mayor to the mayor. I will diarize this to follow up with Jason. We'll pull the contract documents. I don't have it in front of me, but we can follow up and see what we have placed in that particular contract and what follow-up would be required.
Sometimes I just feel like if it was something in there that was simpler, you know, a direct penalty clause for that, you know, a particular event that's missed, as opposed to a clause to be able to get out of the entire contract, that becomes more substantial because you have to put it back out to bid and so on. But if there's a basic penalty clause that is applied, then it's like any other fine, right? Anyone else? Motion moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Michelli, which is a staff recommendation that staff report PW 19-64, award of tender PWR 19-24, winter maintenance of municipal parking lots and sidewalks be received as information, and that the interim general manager of Public Works be authorized to execute a contract for a period of 3 years from November 1st, 2019 to May 1st, 2022, with the contractors listed in the proposed award summary for the supply of the service of winter maintenance as specified in PWR 19-24, winter maintenance of municipal parking lots and sidewalks 2019 to 2022. All those in favor? That's carried. So that would just be my only hope, was that even if there was a requirement to amend that contract, just so that we're protected with that moving forward, just looking at what happened last winter. Next, I guess, Ms. Darlington, is for you with the unsolicited proposal for insurance services.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Earlier this summer, representatives from Tri-County Insurance met with staff and offered 2 unsolicited proposals. The first is to provide third-party consulting services at no cost to determine the route of the county's insurance premium with a view to saving the county premium insurance dollars. In 2018, Council will recall that a contract was approved with Frank Cowan Company Limited for a period of 2 years for the provision of general insurance as well as risk management services as a result of a competitive RFP that was issued. Tri-County Insurance did not pick up a bid or provide a bid submission to the competitive bidding opportunity. In order to maintain the integrity of the purchasing process and ensure fairness, should Council wish to pursue this proposal, that along with the non-disclosure agreement, that only the information outlined as part of the previous RFP would be provided. This will ensure that Tri-County is not unintentionally precluded from any future bidding opportunities. Should Council proceed with the third-party consulting services from Tri-County, the findings of the review will be provided to Council by a future report. The second unsolicited proposal from Tri-County is to provide an opportunity to offer an optional premium-saving group home and auto insurance program for Norfolk County employees and retirees at no cost to the county. Should Council like to accept the second unsolicited proposal, an exception to the county's Code of Conduct policy will be required as outlined in the report. With that, staff will address any questions that you may have.
Questions from councillors? Councillor Columbus.
Being there are 2 different unsolicited proposals, why are they mixed into the same report? Why are they not separated?
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus, they offered the 2 separate proposals at the same meeting, and it was just to expedite the process that they were both here together.
So the one in the first part in regards to sort of reviewing our insurance policy, I've had several conversations with Mayor Hewitt in regards to what took place in Haldeman, and you know, we certainly spoke about this when we approved our insurance policy this past December, I guess it was. And I think that the world of insurance has changed a lot over the years, and it would be interesting it's not costing us anything, it's just a set of eyes that's able to look and perhaps offer us a better, more cost-effective way of doing business. But there's no commitment until, we actually see a proposal presented to council. In the second part, I think it's in terms of the group home and auto program for our county employees and retirees. You can speak to this, Shelley, but there has been nothing offered like this to our employees in the past, correct?
Through the mayor, that is correct. I think the AMO and the local administrative service, LAS, offers some type of home auto insurance that you can join, but there's been nothing offered locally to employees. So this would be something new that would be offered to employees, totally optional on their part if they wanted to consider or join this.
So, I mean, for me, I think that's a great opportunity for staff and for retirees. It costs the county absolutely nothing. It's a benefit to them. They can sign up if they want. If they don't want to and they're happy with their current provider, they can stay with their current provider. There's no commitment. So, for myself, I just, again, I think that's a really generous offer from a local firm to be able to support Norfolk County staff. Councillor Kravitz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. With that, I'm prepared to move staff's recommendation on page 90 of our agenda as it is printed.
Okay, and a seconder, Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, why don't we'll get the bylaws out of the way really quickly, and then we can make a decision where to go from there. So, most moved by Councillor Michele and seconded by Councillor Columbus, that bylaws 2019-94 to bylaw 2019-98 inclusive, bylaws 2019-100 and bylaw 54Z 2019 to bylaw 57Z 2019 inclusive be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. And finally, does everybody want to take a 10-minute break here? Does that sound good? Okay. We'll reconvene at 22, and then perhaps we could move into closed session and take care of a couple of the matters. Perfect. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. I guess we might as well carry on. Moving on to the Parsons presentation in regards to the Long Point Causeway project. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today. And I don't know how you guys want to do it since there's 4 of you, if you just want to all come forward or... Okay. Perfect. That's great.
So, hi everyone. My name is Ariane Caux with Parsons, and we're here to present to you today about the Long Point Causeway rehabilitation from Lakeshore Road to Erie Boulevard and the replacement of the causeway over the Big Creek Bridge. So, I'm hoping you guys are aware of the EA that was concluded earlier this year in April. So we did conduct a study of the Long Point Causeway. It's a two-lane roadway connecting the mainland and Long Point Cottage communities. It's the single connection between the residences and commercial properties within the Long Point community to the mainland. And several key issues were identified with the roadway during the class environmental assessment, including the deteriorating condition of the pavement, substandard shoulder widths and roadside hazards such as trees and existing guardrails, and lack of active transportation facilities. So this route is part of Ontario's South Coast Scenic Route and designated in the Norfolk County Active Transportation Strategy. So based on the bridge assessment completed by others, the bridge over Big Creek is currently in very poor condition, and emergency repairs have been completed in the last 2 years, both in 2018 and 2019. We are in very close proximity to the wetlands, and it's a highly ecologically sensitive and significant area which provides habitat for numerous species at risk. Wildlife road mortality is a key issue on this project, and connectivity across the causeway for these species are a primary concern. There have recently been the installation of 3 box culverts and 9 wildlife tunnels to provide safe passage for wildlife. Observations recently have confirmed that the wildlife tunnels have reduced wildlife mortality. So predominantly in the Long Point community, there's a mix of residential and commercial properties, and there are many seasonal visitors to the study area, including cottagers, bird watchers, hunters, anglers, and other tourists. So of ecological importance, the site is located within a United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Biosphere Reserve, and is considered a Canadian important bird area. It's also home to the Long Point Provincial Park, further east of the study area, and the Big Creek Marsh west of the causeway is a globally significant wetland and national wildlife area. So the municipal class EA was completed earlier this year, and we have completed the first 4 stages of the typical EA process. We are currently in phase 5, which is the implementation phase. As part of the EA process, there was a number of consultations and notices that were issued. There was the notice of study commencement in May, 2 public information centers, the notice of study completion for the Schedule B Class EA, and the notice of study completion for the Schedule C. We also consulted with a number of technical agencies and stakeholder groups, which are listed on the slides in front of you, and we will continue to consult with these agencies throughout the detailed design of this project. The environmental study report addressed the existing roadway and pavement deterioration. It addressed the deteriorating condition of the Long Point Bridge over Big Creek and the active transportation needs identified along the corridor. A number of improvements were identified to maintain a safe and functional road that is suitable for all road users, and it considered opportunities for safety improvements along the corridor, including access modifications, removal of objects in the roadway clear zone, and better sight lines. So as you're aware, we considered a number of alternative solutions as part of the EA, primarily rehabilitating the existing roadway or repaving, widening the 2 lanes to meet the county's accepted road design standards, and accommodating active transportation facilities. So within those 3 alternative solutions, we identified a preferred alternative design concept, which is presented on the next slide. But in brief, it widens from the center line of the existing roadway and increases the shoulder widths to accommodate active transportation. And I'll go through some of the other details when I have the cross-section up on the screen. We also considered the inclusion of a 4-meter off-road multi-use path on the west side. We will not be designing the multi-use path as part of this project, but we included it in the EA should the county decide to pursue it in the future. So the cross-sections in front of you detailed the concepts that were developed as part of the EA. So we have two lanes of traffic, one in each direction, paved shoulders for bicycle lanes, gravel shoulders, and we maintain the cross-section within the existing county right-of-way. The cross-section on the bottom shows the future multi-use trail, should you choose to pursue it, also within the existing county right-of-way. For the bridge over Big Creek, there were 3 alternative solutions that were considered as part of the EA. Only one of them really had merit and was pursued, the option 3C, which is the new horizontal alignment west of the existing bridge. To do nothing was not an option. The bridge is in very poor condition and would remain in very poor condition, and this is a large safety concern. Option 2, which is rehabilitate the existing bridge, would continue to require significant operations and maintenance costing. And alternatives 3A and 3B, which play with the alignment of the bridge, would address structural requirements but would have significant impacts to the local side streets and driveways. So changing the alignment of the existing bridge to the west address the structural requirements with minimal property impacts, and 1 lane of traffic could be maintained throughout construction. Based on the alignments that were considered, we decided to pursue the multi-span bridge with staged construction, which would involve replacing the existing bridges in stages to demolish the existing bridge and maintain traffic throughout construction. There would be minimal increases in existing roadway elevations while accommodating driveways and local streets. And there would be a slightly longer construction time, but the least environmental impacts of all of the alternatives that were considered. There would also be minimal property impacts. The staged construction allows for using the new and old structures to accommodate traffic while construction is ongoing. So at the top of the screen, you'll see an aerial image of the existing structure. By maintaining the bridge in place would require significant profile changes and would unfortunately cut off access to the 2 laneways on either side of the bridge. So by shifting the alignment to the west, we can maintain access to those laneways and the residents or tourists that are visiting. A multi-span bridge, as you can see, we're looking at 3 spans in the bottom cross-section there, was found to be a less expensive option as it required less roadway fill and is sympathetic to the original bridge that is there. On the screen now is an example of the proposed construction staging. So we've got in stage 2, the new bridge on the left and the existing bridge on the right. So we'd be able to maintain 1 lane of traffic on the left while the existing bridge is removed. There would be automatic signaling, I believe, to maintain traffic throughout the duration of construction and maintain the causeway for use during construction. Once the second half of the bridge is completed and the approaches are paved and fully constructed, the bridge would be open to new traffic and the existing bridge would be completely demolished. So some of the key recommendations from the environmental study report are the 2 3.5 meter wide lanes, 1.5 meter wide paved shoulders, and 1 meter wide gravel shoulders on either side. This would accommodate cycling and pedestrians on the paved shoulders based on the county's 2016 active transportation strategy. And the existing Big Creek Bridge would be replaced with the multi-span bridge to the west. The recently constructed box culverts and wildlife tunnels would be extended to accommodate the wider roadway and maintain safe wildlife passage below the new causeway. There would be some access modifications to the laneways and driveways that meet the causeway just to bring them up to the new grades and make sure there's smooth transitions and safe transitions for vehicular traffic from the causeway to the laneways and driveways. And there would be some removal of trees and other obstructions within the clear zones to improve sightlines and vehicular safety. There was also investigation into a joint utility trench to facilitate maintenance and future infrastructure for utilities in the area. So the proposed shoulder widening meets the county's currently accepted design criteria and would improve traffic operations and safety. I understand that there has been some discussion about eliminating the proposed bike lanes. The elimination of the bike lanes would reduce the overall shoulder width from 2.5 meters to 1.5 meters, but this does have the potential to trigger an EA addendum if the proposed change is considered significant in the county's opinion, and if so, this would involve presenting the revised cross-section again to the public. Removal of trees within the roadway clear zone to accommodate shoulder widening may be required, but we will investigate whether we can implement guardrails or other barriers between the roadway and these obstructions to minimize the natural environmental impacts. During the EA phase, there was support for a multi-use path or trail, and as I mentioned, this could be pursued further by the county at a later date. It's not currently included in this phase of the detailed design. We had conducted an inventory of the existing natural environment, and an impact assessment was completed. We identified vegetation, fish sensitivities, and species at risk, and our design will include addressing these impacts and providing mitigation measures. As part of the initial environmental assessment, stages 1, 2, and 3 archaeological assessments were also completed. A stage 4 assessment will be completed during detailed design. We hope that it kicks off shortly. We'll start in the fall and wrap up in the spring. The Long Point Bridge was identified to have cultural heritage value, and as such, the replacement bridge is designed to be sympathetic to the original look and feel of the bridge and maintain that cultural value. There may be some minor property required on the east side of the bridge to accommodate the roadway slopes for the shoulders. That has not yet been confirmed. We're still looking into this as we progress the detailed design. We are also aware of property impacts to the south end of the causeway at the Sandboy Marina and Trailer Park and the Marina Shores. As you can see in the aerial image, there are some trailers that appear to be located partially within the county right-of-way. Part of this assignment is conducting a boundary survey to verify the county's boundaries and review the actual limits of the right-of-way. Once the encroachments are confirmed, Parsons will work with the county to address and resolve these issues. The detailed design kicked off in August, and we're approaching our 30% design submission in November. As I mentioned, the stage 4 archaeological assessment should be kicking off shortly, and we're aiming for a tender for construction between May, so it would be issued for tender in May, and the tender period lasting until July of 2020. This is contingent on permitting. As you're aware, there are a vast number of species at risk, and permitting is a high priority issue on this project. So we are anticipating construction start in the fall of 2020, with road work to be completed in 1 construction season and the bridge replacement in 2 construction seasons. The initial road construction estimate came out to $6.3 million. Please note that $660,000 of this cost has been included in the detailed design contract for the detailed design and contract administration during construction. Of the remaining costs, $3.5 million for road and drainage, $815,000 for wildlife measures, $93,000 for utilities, and there's a 25% contingency. These are all based on the conceptual design, and as we progress the detailed design, we'll be able to refine these numbers even further. For the bridge construction, we estimated $5.3 million total cost, and $564,000 of these are already included in the detailed design, again, for design and contract administration during construction. This leaves $1.8 million for the bridge itself, $2 million for the roadway approaches to the bridge, and again, a 25% contingency. There was, I believe, some interest in exploring whether we could rehabilitate the road through a shave and pave. We estimated this cost to be about $886,000, but the lifespan would only be about 10 years. With a full reconstruction, the lifespan of the roadway would be approximately 50 years, requiring resurfacing at 25 years. For the bridge, we did investigate installing a single-span, 2-lane panel bridge with sidewalks and found this cost to be about the same as the current proposed slab-on-concrete girder structure. To construct the permanent panel bridge, a temporary bridge would need to be constructed to the west. Then the permanent structure could be constructed in the same location as the existing bridge, which may speed up construction. But please note that these structures tend to get noisy under traffic over time and may have a shorter service life than the proposed slab-on-concrete girder structure. So I'd like to open the floor up to any questions.
Thanks very much. Councillor Michelli, did you want to start?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think it helps bring a lot of things to light for council. And I do have a number of questions, but I'm not going to give them to you consecutively. I want to give everybody else a chance. But one thing is that you mentioned that you hope that the stage 4 of the archaeological study will be complete by the spring. There is a possibility that it won't be done by then, though, isn't there?
By that I meant that the archaeological investigation cannot occur while the ground is frozen. So we could do as much as we can in the fall before the winter hits and then pick it up again in the spring. But delaying the completion of the investigation to the spring would not affect the construction timelines we put forward.
You also, you mentioned that the bridge, the current bridge there, has a heritage component to it, and the plan would be to try to, the new bridge would attempt to resemble that previous bridge. I'm not clear where, is that bridge a designated heritage piece of property?
I'm not as familiar with the initial cultural assessment that was done on the bridge. I don't believe that it's been designated, but it is of an age where it's culturally significant. Maybe Dwayne or Marianne, you could take this. Sorry, Marianne is our environmental lead, so she's more familiar with this issue than I am.
Yeah. I'm Marianne Alden with Parsons. The bridge isn't designated, but it does have cultural heritage value with the Cultural Heritage Evaluation Report, and the impact assessment further documents the bridge and just features, history, landscape, and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Marion, but I'm just asking, does that require then that we have to make adjustments and modifications to the new bridge to accommodate that fact?
Yes, so what was presented in the EA was a sympathetically designed bridge that had qualities that would resemble the current structure, or the existing structure.
And does that necessarily mean then that there is some added cost to the bridge as a result of that?
Well, the cost area presented was with sympathetically designed.
Sorry, yeah, any bridge that is older than 40 years has to be assessed for cultural heritage. So we did the assessment on that because the bridge is older than 40 years. So that just triggers the assessment being done. And then they give you 9 different alternatives to evaluate what you do with it, whether you leave it in place, rehab it, all feasible options that you can do with a bridge that's older than 40 years old. Most bridges that are over 40, they want you to try to implement some sympathetic features into the new bridge, where there's similar looks, similar styles, similar materials. We're not using timber again on the new bridge because it's not as durable of a material or component. As far as sometimes cultural heritage, you can plaque an old bridge, make a monument about the old bridge. This one, the 3-span, is more to get our vertical clearances to accommodate the 2 laneways. If we go any higher with a single-span bridge, we're going to cut off both those laneways. If we Just the fact then we have two vertical piers in the middle make it kind of look like the old bridge as well, make it sympathetic, right? The old bridge has 7 piers. It looks kind of similar from the outside and the visual of it. So, and it's not a new truss bridge. It's not something totally different look-wise. So,
Thank you. So, but I'm just still not clear. Does this sympathetic bridge, is it a more expensive bridge than if we were just building a totally brand new one?
sorry, no. This is when we evaluated the cost of this bridge. It was the most economical bridge that we can build in this location. Yeah, whether if we were a single span, it was going to cost a few more $100,000. The concrete in this application is the least expensive cost option for a type of bridge. So there's no impacts because it was sympathetically designed.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's good for now.
Councillor Columbus.
Thank you. I had a question here with respect to the road, the road, not the bridge. How much higher will the road be built up compared to what it is now? We have some flooding issues in some spots and emergency access in case of a bad storm. So how much more will that causeway road be built up over what's currently there?
In the early stages of the EA, we had investigated raising the road profile in general about 1 meter higher than the roadway is now. This would require a significant amount of fill and would incur significant construction costs. We are proposing to raise the road slightly over what it is now to balance the costs of the additional fill, but also provide better flood protection than the existing conditions. I don't have that number right now off the top of my head, but flood protection is something that we are taking into consideration as we develop the design.
There was a slide, I think it was slide 5. It talked about the Schedule B completion. Was that actually completed, the Schedule B? I thought it was determined that it had to be a Schedule C, and so that was.
To the best of my understanding, the Schedule B was completed, and MECP issued a notice or came back with a. Sorry, I'm not Marianne. Maybe you can explain this better than I can.
So it was completed originally as a Schedule B, but the cost came back over the threshold of 2.4 million, so it elevated the study to a Schedule C, and the full planning process had to be followed.
So I'll keep you there for a second, actually, because this is a question I actually had for our former director of engineering, and I got a bit of a different story than that story. So I just want to be clear, because the Schedule B, what would put that over the threshold into a Schedule C is not only the cost of the bridge, but also the trigger is the age of the bridge. Yes. And I'm just wondering how Parsons, now that I have you all here, how that wasn't known immediately from the beginning, because a number of our residents, now we're talking about not starting bridge construction until the end of the season next year, with a second season of bridge construction in 2021, but the OSIM report from 2016 was full replacement in 1 to 5 years. They had deemed it in that critical of condition. And so I've always wondered what happened, what the real story was between the Schedule B and the Schedule C, because I would have thought that that age trigger would have been the thing that did it right away for you guys back in.
Well, the age trigger, if it's if it has heritage value, it's a threshold. So if it's under 2.4 million, it would be a B, but it was discovered as the study progressed and they went and issued, my understanding is it was above that threshold that elevated it to a C, and then the ministry came back and said it had to be done as a Schedule C.
It was unfortunate that added so much time to it. So I guess the next question then for me is, why would a simple bridge, I mean, that there's no other alternative to construction, take us 2 seasons to do? It's not that it's that large of a bridge. I mean, you're seeing bridges across major highways being done in a season as opposed to.
I'll defer to my colleague here.
Like, I'm just concerned that this sympathetic bridge piece is, like Councillor Michelli, is maybe causing some added
So the latest construction schedule we have right now, we're starting August 4th next year. We're hoping we get the first stage done by December, if we can pave on time before the cold. They can put the new piers in for the stage 2 right away in January and have it open by around June or July the following year. So those 2 seasons we're talking is August to December is the first part. And then they'll start the second stage in January and be done around June or July. So I know originally in the EA we had approximately 18 months to do the whole construction of the bridge, but we're looking at reducing the construction period to make that all work. So.
One of the factors in the construction schedule is also staging. If we could close the causeway, shut down traffic, replace the bridge, it can be done fairly quickly. That's obviously not a viable option in this case. There are residents there. We do need to be cognizant of the uses of the area, make sure that it's still available for the tourist season. So we are doing what we can to accelerate the construction schedule and maintain the 1 lane of traffic.
So are we factoring, I mean, we had emergency repairs in 2018, we had emergency repairs in 2019, and given that the OSIM report in 2016 said full replacement, I'm assuming we're probably going to have some additional repairs. I just had somebody take some video footage actually the other day underneath the bridge if you're interested in seeing it. So now we're looking at 2 years. I mean, we're still adding additional costs here with this continued sort of delay in the bridge. Like, I'm just wondering why we're so late into starting this next season, why we wouldn't be starting it in the spring. And I think that there's support around the table from council that, you know, we've always wondered why the EA was done over the entire project and why the bridge wasn't, given that that was the critical component, why we didn't separate the bridge, focus on repairing the bridge, and then deal, you know, with the rest of the causeway. And again, if we're looking at further archaeological studies for the stage 4, you know, that we're waiting on for the road, I think that given we're still going to be looking at additional repair costs on the bridge, in all likelihood, we kind of want to hear some of these, you know, alternative solutions to how can we move forward with the bridge component as quickly as possible to get that.
One of the other scheduling hang-ups is the permitting on this project. Even if you can accelerate construction of the bridge to start earlier next year, being able to get the permits in time for the in-water works and species at risk may be an issue. We are in the process of developing a permit acquisition strategy to help speed up this process. I unfortunately don't have anything to present to you right at this time, but we are doing everything that we can to get to construction sooner.
Including the keeping in the back of your mind that you would have support from council to separate the bridge from the rest of the project to get the bridge done.
Yes.
Because I would say that the bridge is almost, in terms of discussions that I've had with the MOE, bordering on an emergency state of need of repair. So to me, that should be enough to expedite permits from species at risk when we have human species living out on Long Point that may not have a way to get to their homes.
Understood.
So I need, I guess, confidence that we're considering, yes, we want to move ahead with the causeway, the whole of the project, but the primary goal here right now of critical importance is addressing the bridge.
Moving the roadway design and the bridge design together in tandem is not delaying the start of the bridge construction.
Sorry, say that again?
Moving the roadway design forward in tandem with the bridge design is not delaying the bridge construction. We're accelerating both pieces of design to be able to deliver a project that can be constructed efficiently, as quickly as possible, for a reasonable budget, and doing everything we can on the environmental side to accelerate permitting as well so we can get out into the field as soon as possible.
So if we were to able to get those permits, would there not be, what would be the hang up then of being able to start the bridge construction in the spring?
Yeah, sorry. We just started the detailed design on the whole project. Like, we just got the assignment, so it's October now already, but right now the timetable is have the detailed design done by May, and then go into tender for several months, getting all the everything else in order to be able to start August 4th. So our task is to get done by the beginning of May, which is only 5-6 months away. So that's quite a bit of work to do in that time.
Okay, so while I have you then, on that note, like, to me, and I don't mean to belabor this issue with, like, prefab bridges and so on, but there's a reason that they were designed, right? And despite the fact that the newspaper reported that I thought they were cute, I was more concerned with the fact that they
Yeah.
could be implemented expeditiously and shutting a road down for a minimal amount of time. And, you know,
Yeah.
you can have a form already on the bridge and pour the concrete and it's cured in 2 weeks. I mean, there's a bridge that's as long as this bridge in Collingwood that they had cut and installed in a matter of 2 weeks. And so
Yeah.
when I hear 2 years to make a multi-span sympathetic bridge,
Sorry, it's not 2 years, like from design to finish?
well, no, 2 summers
Okay.
to that's what you guys
No,
just said.
no, we're going to start next fall and be done by the following spring. 8 months construction.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
a year then, 2 seasons, right? 2 seasons where that's one of our prime tourist areas in Norfolk County. And so we're really, it's bad going out there on a good day, let alone now we're down to 1-lane bridge traffic again like we were 2 years ago. And we've already seen what that's done. So it's not a matter of the bridge being cute, but it's a matter of how can we get this done as quickly as possible. And that's what concerns me. And I'm wondering if there hasn't been something with this sympathetic bridge and having to do this
No.
multi-span. Like, I've never heard that before today.
No, I mean, we got to drive, we're finishing up the geotechnical investigation. We got to drive the piles 150 feet there. The ground is so bad that we got to drive piles really deep. So that's going to take a couple months regardless if you have a prefab bridge or a precast girder bridge.
But again, with the prefab, the installation is so fast.
Oh, I get
right?
that, but we
It's
still
too-
need, we need foundations though, right? So you got to drive piles, and that's going to take a couple months, and you're going to need a concrete abutment to support that on as well. We're not going to put just a timber foundation down to support a prefab steel bridge.
No,
Okay.
Councillor Michelle can maybe jump in here, but like I'm almost thinking it would be better to have, a single span bridge without. It would a lot of people go underneath with their boats and so on. I just don't know of this historical kind of value to that bridge. I've never heard this before.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have asked that question originally because I have heard of this sort of, and with respect, sort of almost this urban legend version of the bridge. It's some kind of, historically significant design and has special features that no other bridge has. Honestly, and again with respect, I drive over that bridge a lot. It's a bridge. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm just also wondering, I've been getting some information also that there are also prefab fiberglass bridges that, and I'm sure you're aware of those, that are even, I'm not going to say easier because nothing is easier in your business. I understand that. But that would afford maybe us a little bit more flexibility, no pun intended with that, with the timelines on this. As Madam Mayor and myself and members of council also, this has been a very lengthy project, a very lengthy process, and I know you're aware of that, and I know you're doing everything you can. I think the mayor and I and other members of council are just kind of wanting to confirm that we're doing everything we can to expedite the whole project, but just wondering, just from a sort of a layman's point of view, why we just can't do the bridge, and then, because the roadway, I get, very few actual complaints from people about the roadway's safety. I get constant concerns about the safety of the bridge, and I just don't want to get us to a point where the next action we take is when someone's tire goes through one of those rotten boards on there. And that's our concern, and I know you appreciate that, but I'm just hoping that we can maybe get a little bit forward on the timeline. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Just on the note of the single-span bridges, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, that would eliminate access to the laneways on either side of the bridge. The residents, the cottagers that use those laneways to get to their properties would no longer have roadway access to their properties. They would only be able to access them by boat.
And there's no way to bring that out around within the road allowance or anything there.
The one specifically to the south is basically a peninsula. That's the only access right there. So there's like 4 or 5 lots there. The other one, they got an adjacent kind of driveway connecting all the lots, but unless you detour somebody's lot through somebody else's lot, I don't know if that's practical or acceptable to those homeowners, right, to go through that way.
I guess the big thing, like I heard you mentioned earlier in the presentation, I just put a note that you were, because when you were talking about sort of the prefabs and you said, well, the costs were about the same.
Yep.
And, you know, to me, it's not a matter, again, it's not a matter so much of the cost in this case. It's not a matter of the cute factor, but it's a matter of how minimal disruption that we can cause to Long Point and how quickly, i.e. one season, can we go and get this project done. And I'm just not convinced of the, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, construction is going to be a disturbance no matter what we do. I think we were trying to balance a long-term solution, right? Bridge there that lasts 75 or more years with tried and true system with precast concrete girders. Glass fiber, we'll use glass fiber deck to be non-corrosive materials in the deck, as opposed to a steel truss bridge that's prefabbed. And those do take a long time to build still. You got to assemble, you need a long staging area to push that prefab bridge, right?
I'm just going to be a little bit cheeky here, so I don't take any offense to this. But, I mean, in prefab bridges, they say now that the lifespan is the same, arguably,
Like
as a traditional.
Like, I'm not, sorry, prefab bridge. Are you talking like a Bailey style bridge or like
a Bailey style bridge even, sure.
Okay, yep.
With corten steel. So arguably the lifespan is the same. So this idea that they're not going to last as long.
Yep.
But, so this is where the cheeky part comes in. So as the designer, there's more money to be made in designing a traditional bridge as opposed.
No, that's not true. We design prefab bridge, like Acro bridges. We work with Acro all the time, and we find the best solutions. A lot of county roads, I agree, where you have a single span, one lane traffic, we put them in. We put some in town of Lincoln several years ago. We use them, and they're the best application if your abutments are in good condition and you can just drop one in there real quickly. So we work with Acro and other prefab companies to design them quite often. It's not about us saving money for design. So.
Okay. I hope that sort of taking the thing to take away from this is that it is imperative that we get the bridge done out on Long Point. And if we can find a way, even if it's the same cost, or, you know, to get the bridge done in a shorter period of time, whatever unique sort of solution we have to aim for. And in terms of, you know, maybe council, if you needed our direction, might be able to challenge the sort of sympathetic heritage kind of component of that bridge. I'm just saying if that became some sort of barrier in the design process that looked like it was going to add time or complexity or.
I think our biggest thing was those two lanes. Like if we go to a single span, you can build it quicker, a little bit quicker, but cutting off those two lanes was not really an option in the design phase. So unless you decide to cut off those two lanes, we can go to a single span, we can raise all the grades. But I don't have that decision to take those lots away, right? So.
And I also want to add, if you change the cross-section of the bridge to a single span, you may, if that's considered significant, you would have to do an addendum to the EA because you're changing the bridge, the sympathetically design that was presented, and the cross-section.
Anything further from Council? Councilor Micheli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the other question I kind of have about this whole process is the paved shoulders would act as the bike path, correct? And the bike path, according to the design we have, will meet the county standards for the sides of both of those roads. Is that correct? Okay. And so you referred earlier to the possibility or the need to cut down some of the trees?
Yes.
But not all of the trees? So only where you would actually need to do that, where they interfere with sight lines or where they are, you know, causing some kind of other hazard or making it impossible to extend the shoulder, that's where you would have to do it, right?
So if we need to widen the shoulders and the trees located there, yes, we would have to cut it down. Where the trees are located in very close proximity to the roadway and shoulders, where it infringes on the clear zone, we would have to remove those trees if there's not enough space to install another barrier, such as a guardrail. Okay. So we'll look into the possibility of installing these barriers to maintain as much of the existing natural environment in the area as we can.
Okay. And I'm just now speaking of the road that goes right into Long Point. There are some businesses on the east side of the road, and would there be an allowance? And I know that there is a question of whether or not some of those businesses actually have are conducting some of their business on the county road allowance itself.
Mm-hmm.
So once that's actually determined, what would be the solution to that?
We don't have the final impacts to the roadway just yet. As I mentioned, we're still approaching the 30% design, which would finalize the width of the ditches and whatnot and confirm the extent of the disturbance outside of the existing roadway. At that point, we would work with the county to minimize the impacts. There may be opportunity to shift the roadway alignment to the west to prevent impacts to those existing businesses. Depends on the design at that point in that section of roadway, how much available allowance there is on the west side, so we could do that. But it's something that we are aware of and are willing to work with the county on to ensure that there are minimal disruptions to the existing businesses there.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you have an idea when you might know when that would be able to be communicated to council or to the business owners?
End of November. I mean the survey is ongoing. The boundary survey is ongoing. We hope to have that done in a couple of weeks. Once we have the 30% design done, we'll be able to confirm the extents of the disturbed area for the new construction, and we'd be able to present that back to the county and council if interested.
Okay, so in a couple of weeks then.
Yeah.
So we could perhaps possibly get this information at our next council meeting. Would that be reasonable?
I believe the next one's early November. That may be too close, but the December meeting, if there's one.
Third week of November. Would that be reasonable?
Potentially. I'd have to talk with the team
Okay,
to make sure that they're ready for that.
I think these businesses would need to have as much advance notice for any adjustments that they might have to make.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Clemens.
Madam Mayor, councilors have received several emails in the last week or two about this particular project, and I just wonder, one of the statements that was made was that the trees actually are stabilizing the road. Is, in your professional opinion, are the trees stabilizing the causeway that's there now?
I'm not an arborist, but the logic makes sense that the root system would stabilize the roadway. If the trees are removed, what we would do in reconstructing the roadway is install granular material, granular A, granular B, whatever is recommended by our geotechnical engineers, to ensure that the roadbed does have a stable base and does have the longevity that we are proposing for it, which is, I think, 50 years.
Councilor Van Bassen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just from my own experience, trees do stabilize it till they blow over, and then they make it worse when the roots get up. I've been listening to this report, and I can understand the previous council's frustration with this project, with this council's frustration with this project. I think our guests here understand we want the bridge fixed as quickly as possible, but if we change any of the elements of the initial design, that might will trigger another EA, which will delay the process. And then if we get it done faster, it's going to be springtime. We can't work in the water anyway because the little critters of the world are going to be breeding around there. So it's a significant wetland. We can't do anything till the summer. So I just don't know where we can change anything other than the process. I'm sure that they will go back and work as quickly as possible to get everything so that maybe we can get the tenders out sooner, that as soon as that window opens up, we're allowed to set 1 foot in the water, that we can start maybe in August rather than in the fall. But no, we can't do that either because then it's tourist season and we can't we'll have complaints on that end. So I like the concept, the design, the paved shoulders. We'll solve the bike path. The EA's already been done, so potentially if like the county wins the lottery someday, we could build a nice walking path beside there and we'll already have done the paperwork. But I like the plan so far, and let's get it done as quick as we can. And I know that's going to take way too long, but what else can we do?
Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would have to agree with Councillor Van Passen. I really like this plan. I mean, everything sounds like it's what pretty much everyone who lives there, who works there, who owns property there wants. It's just the timeline, and I know that some of this is beyond our control, as Councillor Van Passen said, but if there are any opportunities or ways that we can expedite it at all, obviously we'd be very, very happy. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thanks very much for coming. That was great.
Thank you for
It's
having us.
one of our most important projects here in Norfolk, so there's just a lot of concerns from our residents out there.
Understood. We're happy to have this open discussion with you. We'll present all of our information as it comes to light, and we hope to maintain this working relationship with the county and council and ensure that we deliver a safe product in a timely manner that makes as many people happy as we can. Thank you.
And I just want to add one thing. So we can look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So just one last thing I wanted to add, and hopefully council can indulge me for a second, just in terms of any of the public that is watching now. There has been a lot of blowback over the last week as a result of a headline that I think suggested that council was reconsidering the Causeway project. But to be clear, I don't believe that there was ever a motion for reconsideration, and we had full intentions of continuing to move forward. The biggest concern that we have had since we all took office was just in terms of ensuring that the bridge component was done as that was of prime importance and done as expeditiously as possible, because we know that there's likely going to be a need for further emergency repairs if it's not. So, and any help you need with that in terms of, challenges with the MOE and advancing that on an emergency basis for permits, please let us know. Misleading headlines caused quite a stir. Okay, so, yeah, did you want to bring your deputation forward then? Mr. Carter, would you like to do your deputation now? Okay, perfect.
Mayor Chop, members of council, thank you for inviting me to speak on this endeavor that the BIA is taking on. I'm Cam Carter. I am the chairman of the BIA at long last. We have access to funding from the Government of Ontario for downtown improvement. Thank you to council and staff for coordinating of this and the assistance we've received so far. It's been great working with economic development. They've been very helpful, steering us in the right directions.
Cam, maybe I could just get you to hang on 1 second there.
Sure. You realize I'm going to have to start all over now.
Yeah, it's okay.
No, I'm kidding. Okay.
Are we good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
As you're aware, there's been a perception of safety in our downtown. We've taken a number of steps to make it a safe and friendly place to walk. Walking is what we really want people to be doing down there, not just driving by. Including in that has been the cleanup of our alleys, the murals that we've had put down there for the public's enjoyment, and the other thing is better lighting. We've endeavoring to do a little bit on Robinson Street. We have some lighting in one of the alleys going on right now. What I'm here to tell you about is another project that we're working on, and that's cameras in the downtown. We've budgeted through this funding for 28 cameras to go into the actual BIA area. It will have a live feed to the BIA office. The police will only have access to the videos if there's an occurrence and they request permission. We did get multiple quotes on it and have agreed to go with the lowest tender, which is actually a local company. The cameras will communicate with each other by Wi-Fi. An added bonus to this is we'll be able to provide free Wi-Fi to the public in the BIA area. Now that'll mean both residents and businesses can check their emails and probably Facebook. They won't be able to stream Netflix or things like that. The bandwidth won't be strong enough for them. So we've been made sure it won't be taken advantage of. We'll also have the ability for handheld camera for videoing events to use for social media. We'd also have the ability to live stream something that's going on downtown, similar to what Norfolk County does at the Port Dover Pier right now. I checked that earlier today just to see how it worked, and because it's been a while since I looked at it, but it's every 4 seconds it refreshes and you can see what's going on. We've been working in conjunction with the OPP, and the spots that we're asking permission for are mostly hydro poles and light poles or standards that have existing plugs in them, which is where the Christmas lights will hook into during the month of December. So a lot of the infrastructure is right there. Yeah, so that's basically what we're up to. We had wanted to get permission to for the light standards and passed it on up, and it was suggested that we better make sure that council are on board with this and aware of this before we proceed. So that's what I'm here for. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have. I'm not the techie on the board, that's for sure, but I'll try to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming. Any questions for councilors? Councilor Columbus.
Kim, how soon do you intend to implement this project?
The person we're working with said once he gets a deposit down, it'll take him about a week to 2 weeks to get the product in, so we hope to have it by the end of November. He's very hopeful that we can do it by the end of November so that he's not out there in snowstorms installing. He doesn't see any problems, that none of them are overly high. He will have the proper equipment. He has proper insurance and all that sort of thing. So we're hoping to have them by the end of November, but the funding has to be paid out by the end of December, from what I understand, or it's gone.
Any further questions from councilors? Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
So I have a motion to receive the deputation of Cam Carter respecting cameras in the downtown Simcoe BIA, that it be received as information. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that's carried. And Councillor Taylor, did you want me to read your motion? Okay, so Councillor Taylor's moved that council authorize the usage of municipal property in the central Simcoe BIA district for the purposes of allowing the installation of video cameras by the Simcoe BIA, and that county staff be directed to consult with the BIA to ensure camera installations on municipal property are reviewed prior to installation. Seconded by Councillor Ravitz. Any further discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Wonder, will there be some signage up that there's video cameras in the downtown? Is that kind of a mandatory thing? I know some places you go to it that says you're on camera. So.
Yes, one of our committee members already has the slogan, "Smile, you're in the downtown." So yes, we will have warnings.
Perfect. Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. And now I guess it's time to move into closed session. I don't know where I put it. Just a motion moved by this one?
Yeah, there's two separate ones because we have that closed session.
Okay.
You could add K and I to that too.
Okay. All right, so motion moved by Councillor Guys and seconded by Councillor Michelli that council move into closed session at 5:53 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to a verbal update regarding a property-related matter in Ward 5, a legal memo regarding a conveyance of land, a legal memo regarding legal advice and planning matters, a verbal update from the CAO in